Hello, I want to welcome everyone to the Wounds to Wisdom author storytelling evening. So, tonight I want to introduce Lona Spisso. For over 2 decades, Lona has empowered current and rising leaders with critical action steps to achieve both personal and professional goals. She has coached in the private, corporate, military, and professional sports industries to help her clients break through plateaus and achieve extraordinary growth. She has coached individuals and teams during many phases of organizational change and challenges, such as IPOs, mergers, RIFs, sector switching, and transitioning veterans from the military. Lona relies on her expertise in human behavior, her background in psychology, as well as her experience as a former Army officer and combat veteran. She develops relationships quickly, identifies obstacles, and creates strategic action plans guiding her clients to success. Lona is unparalleled in her ability to provide customized solutions for leaders and teams. This approach includes aligning mindsets, behaviors, and actions with core values. When these four elements align, she believes profound leaps in leadership become possible and true personal transformation begins. Her straightforward approach with structure, accountability, compassion, and transparency, blended with proven performance strategies, generates real results. Lona arms her clients with precise skills to navigate and overcome any challenge that comes their way while helping them build the quality of life they've always dreamed of. If you would like to connect with Lona, please reach out to her through any of the following channels, and I will have that on the description on our YouTube channel. So, Lona, I'm thrilled to have you share your story tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so I do want to say I'm going to read my story, but there are certain aspects that I left out of the book that I just didn't feel comfortable putting in there. And we had to keep it down to 1,500 words. So I will stop for a moment, interject a few things that'll help understand why it was so devastating for me, and then keep going. So there's only a few little spots, but I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that I am going to add some stuff in there. And I've got a really dry throat, so I'm sorry if I'm drinking water. So, hello everyone, Sarah and this whole tribe here. Thank you so much for supporting me. You guys are just such amazing people. I don't think you really realize how amazing you are. I am chapter 15 in the book. It is called Faith, Forgiveness, and Letting Go. I have vivid memories as a child, crawling under my bed, clinging to my blanket, crying myself to sleep. I'm a twin. I was the youngest child of four when my parents got divorced. It was terrifying when my mom left. I clung to her leg, begging her not to go when we saw her. I wore my Wonder Woman pajamas that made me feel literally like a superhero. Yet inside, I was just a little girl self-soothing. Not having a mom at home was hard. Dad loved us, but didn't always know the right things to say or do. My biggest insecurity was my fear of being abandoned again. Shortly after my parents divorced, we lost my mom's sister to suicide. Then we lost my mom's brother, my favorite uncle, to suicide a few years later. I was 10. It was so confusing. They invented this story of his death. Suicide was seen as a disgrace and embarrassment in my family. I didn't know how to navigate this shame. All I could think to myself was, were we really that dysfunctional family? This exacerbated my abandonment wounds, causing me to jump into a fixer role to keep me from being hurt again. My dad, a business owner, worked tirelessly, sun up to sundown. Us kids were raised by a stream of nannies, furthering my abandonment issues. In high school, I was forced to take on the role of mother hen. I looked forward to Dad being away for work. It meant no yelling at home. Dad had anger issues, yelling, pushing, and repeated put downs that just slaved my soul and my heart. He'd say, "You're never going to amount to anything." I moved out immediately after high school, driven and determined. I excelled in college. However, I still struggled with unhealthy coping skills. I wanted to feel accepted. I needed a secret weapon to avoid vulnerability and rejection at all costs. I thought, I can find this in the military. Dad scoffed one night when I was telling him about this. He said, "You'll never make it through basic training. You don't tell me what I can't do because I'm going to do it even more." In 2000, with a few college degrees under my belt, I enlisted in the Army. I embraced the military. It changed me and provided structure for me that I needed. I got into officers candidate school. I was going to prove my dad wrong. I was worthy. My service gave me confidence. I learned how to be compassionate, which accelerated my leadership roles. There was never a problem when it couldn't be solved, and I was never nervous about saying no. Problem solving has always been one of my superpowers. In 2002, I met a great classmate and fellow officer named Danny. He became a good friend. I'll tell you more about him later. Around the same time, I met my husband, now former, who will remain nameless. The man had charisma, confidence, and looks that would turn heads in a room. His flattery left me on an emotional high and gave me the self-esteem I longed for. He was the first man I truly felt safe with. I was able to drop my armor and reveal my wounds. His words of affirmation were exactly what I needed. 7 years later, we were married. Soon after we said I do, his whole demeanor changed. I knew something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. He began isolating me from my family and friends. While he made me think I was the center of his universe, his manipulations were cruel and deliberate. Leaving wasn't an option. My Christian values taught me to stay married, plus I desperately wanted to break my family cycle of divorce. I'll add there, literally, both of my parents were married several times by the time I graduated high school. They're both with their loved ones now. Unfortunately, my mother's husband passed away, and all of my sisters actually that have been married have been divorced. So you can see why it was really my goal to not end up one of the statistics in my family. Sorry. He began isolating me from family and friends. While he made me think I was the center of his universe, his manipulations were cruel and deliberate. Leaving wasn't an option. My Christian values taught me to stay married. Plus, I desperately wanted to break my family cycle of divorce, so I suppressed my feelings and went back to being a self-soother. A year into my marriage, my husband and I were both deployed to Afghanistan. He was a sergeant major. He also knew Danny, who I mentioned earlier. After a hot 12-hour day in July, I was feeling exhausted and hungry. I ran to the chow hall where I bumped into Danny. He was sitting alone. When I walked towards him, he looked up and smiled at me. I sat down, and it was like no time had passed since I'd seen him last. We had a great time catching up. Danny was one of the most selfless guys I knew, kind of guy who had boot marks on his back from always being the first to carry others' struggles. A few hours later, Danny was gone. How could I not see one single sign that he was about to take his own life? I would have carried him as far as he needed if only I had known. Once again, suicide was at my doorstep. It was also disorienting. It threw me into another emotional spiral. My heart was broken. I suffered an intense feeling of sadness and guilt. I truly believe I could have stopped it from happening had I seen the signs. But we all know that most likely isn't the case. What I need to also add here is prior to going to the military, I had gotten my degrees in psychology and social work. So my last big job that I had was in crisis management for suicide and recognizing those signs. So it was really raw and real fresh when all of that happened back in 2008 it was. So I lived with that guilt for quite a long time. Survivor's guilt is very real. So imagine someone who has not dealt with all that and then has all this going on with her marriage. So now I'll get back to the story. As I continued to work through my grief, our deployment was over and we were heading home. I needed my husband to be there for me. He just wanted to move past it and focus on being his wife. He always needed to be the center of attention. He loved to draw an audience. He would snap and defend criticism from others, responding with a backhanded statement. He always told me he was misunderstood. Not knowing I was married to a covert narcissist, I believed him. From that point forward, self-soothing and fixing others' problems provided a sense of purpose and validation for me. I did all the work inside and outside the house while he took care of himself. I avoided conflict at all costs to avoid the chance of him abandoning me. I didn't want to be that little girl hiding under the bed again. He knew this about me. He knew exactly what to say and what to do to keep me tied to him. Life was a roller coaster. It was full of highs and lows. Then one morning after he left for work, I walked in the bedroom from the shower to find his wedding ring on the nightstand. I'm standing there like, what the fuck? He never takes his ring off. He didn't even have the courage to speak to me or leave a note. I went into our walk-in closet and literally saw a gaping hole where his custom tailored suits and shirts once hung. They were gone. I literally felt the blood drain from my face. I sat down on the bed. I was paralyzed. I had been blindsided, devastated when I found out about the multiple affairs. And within days, I had zero access to our finances. Another piece here that I want to explain why it was such a devastating blow is the woman who was the last affair had been going on for quite a while. I didn't realize that. It was a family friend of ours. She also walked out on her husband. They're now married. But the whole thing of it was, all of it was premeditated. Looking back, it had been going on 10 months prior to me even finding out about it. And the way everything just happened, it was like, day one, my electrics shut off. Day two, cable. Day three, cell phone. Day four, bank accounts changed. And, he had help, obviously. It was definitely premeditated, and just one blow after another after another. I was just waiting for the shoe to drop. And then there would be the phone calls of being nice and then lashing out at me and being nice. And I don't even know like where my head is. And the way a covert narcissist works is the gaslighting. Literally, I thought I was the crazy one. So I'm going to get back into my story again. I literally said to myself, good Lord, how long had he been planning this? Never thought in a lifetime that this would have ever happened to me. 15 years of my life gone in the blink of an eye. The next several years were some of the lowest in my life. He didn't want to let me go, yet still having the affair and using our business and finances to keep me in bondage. As a leadership coach, I wasn't practicing what I preached to my clients. As a woman, I no longer recognized myself. I became a codependent, filled with panic and uncertainty, completely paralyzed with fear to set boundaries. For 3.5 years, he dragged me in and out of divorce. I'll add that it wasn't until I finally found, and I can say it, I found her divorce paperwork at his house when I thought the whole entire time we were working through our problems to make our marriage work. And that's when I say suddenly I had a profound awakening. I reached radical acceptance that the man wasn't capable of changing, and the love that he had for me was an illusion. I was allowing him to steal my joy. Scared to death, I took my first steps back into my power. I knew I had to cut off all ties. It was through the grace of God and that my heart began to heal. 3 years of counseling and hard work, I was finally free from his trauma bond and the rage. I started to take better care of myself. Mindset's very powerful. Discipline as well. We stand in our power when we successfully align our minds with our values and behaviors. The pinnacle of healing started once I learned what forgiveness truly meant. Forgiveness is not how you feel about the abuser, justifying their actions, letting them off the hook, or even letting them back into your life. Forgiveness is about your freedom and letting go of what no longer serves you. Allowing forgiveness in my heart completely changed the course of my life. Then God almost immediately dropped an amazing man into my life. someone who has shown me the true meaning of loyalty, faith, and action. And I've never been happier. 18 years of that, and then holy cow. His name is Rob, and I'm no longer that little girl hiding under the bed. I have an amazing relationship with both my parents, and letting go and removing people and things that no longer serve you is like pruning a tree to help it grow. Everyone's journey is different. It took me almost 7 years to even broach this subject without shame. I'm not a victim. I'm a victor, and I don't have any regrets. These lessons made me a better woman and a better coach. I wouldn't be where I am today without the hardships and the pain. There's no instruction manual or timeline for grief and loss. To always listen to your gut and never ignore the red flags. I embrace my scars and keep moving forward. Getting to the other side of grief and forgiveness brought me absolute freedom.
Oh, Lana. First off, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. I think probably every woman and probably many men, we hear your story and what that must have been like for you and to overcome like that is such a deep wound. Oh my gosh, because it's trust, it's everything. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing. There's so many people who have gone through this, but you don't hear it because it's so deep.
Yeah,
Um, I just, how did it feel to share it?
I felt good. I had so much apprehension. And then I was like, oh, I gotta put some notes down. And then literally, I did not stop working until 3 minutes before. I'm like, oh, I better go put a different shirt on. And I said, what? I'm just gonna go for my heart. I'm just gonna do it because I already know this. I don't have to worry about it. I'm just gonna talk. I did repeat myself in one part of that, but it's okay.
Totally okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
listen, I own my mistakes. It's all good. I'm perfectly imperfect.
It's so authentic and it is a story that needs to be told in this world that
Yeah.
you can get your confidence back. You can overcome a deep wound like that. And especially with all the confusion, you
Hmm.
have shared what that is, what that looks like, so that people can actually identify it and declare what is going on. I can tell you, I've heard tough stories that in that spirit, and it is to hear you share what it was, what you did, how you felt, how you overcame, how you have your power back, how you are in another relationship with Rob who treats you well. It's like, okay, this is a healthy relationship. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you and also so grateful that you are telling so many people stories that just don't have their voice yet.
Yeah.
So,
It was hard. I mean, I tried pushing him away because I didn't understand what a healthy relationship was. So, yeah. Hence
oh,
why letting go, and faith, forgiveness, and letting go. It was my magic recipe.
it's incredible. It's incredible. That and it takes a lot of courage because I know a lot of these relationships with covert and you know what they say, covert, overt narcissists, they usually target high-powered, beautiful women. They kind of have to knock them down a few notches, right? To feel
Yes.
their own power, right? There's nothing new under the sun here, except that there can be so much shame with it that not very many people will open up about it. And you have really conquered. Thank you. Do you have like that little pajama outfit that you had when you were a little girl? Do you have like a
I
woman?
don't, but I still to this day, like if Wonder Woman is on or anything, Linda Carter, I see her, I'm like, oh my gosh. I had the little bands, I'm like, psh, psh. My twin and I, like, we used to run around the house like crazy. My dad probably was losing his mind from it all, but oh yeah.
That's so awesome. Well,
Yeah.
listen, thanks again for sharing, and I'll open it up to everybody. I will go ahead and turn it off. Anybody who is watching this, if you want to come join us The conversations are deep, and just connect to the power of our story, and you can come join us. Thanks so much again.